I don't want to lose it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a call to order of the Finance Committee. The time is now 6:53 p.m. In attendance is myself, Committee Chair, Ms. Baptiste Perez, Committee Member, Ms. Bobby Brown, Committee Member, Mr. Albert Benahan, Board Member. This committee meeting is going to be a little different. It's going to be a little bit unstructured. We're just here to plan some community forums and only two sole agenda items. One is the approval of minutes from the previous meeting dated February 23rd, 2022. Do we have a motion to approve?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And next up on the agenda is we've got some upcoming committee meetings that are going to serve basically as community forums. We're trying something different this year. In the past, we've had one person in front of everybody that's speaking, one board member or two board members in attendance. And I don't know, we felt that format is like not as engaging as it could be, and it could be broken up a little better.
Okay.
So the format that I propose we use is I'll come in and I'll introduce an overview where the funds come from, federal, state, local, grants, et cetera, et
So
cetera.
I'm gonna start it like it's a committee meeting.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect.
And then we can have an item called myth busting. The same myths we get every single year. We're going to try to put those to rest in the beginning. We're going to mention them.
Okay.
And throughout the presentation, when it comes up, it'll be
How
not.
many myths do you have? I'm just.
This room, and so far I got. Oh, my notes didn't transfer all the way. Then we don't tell the city council where the money comes from.
Oh, so you got it. So
I got a whole bunch of bullet points, and
Okay.
maybe we could alternate back and forth between us, or I could just delineate the list. If it's because we got I'll do this from memory. We don't tell anybody where it comes from. Our budget is not audited. Is another common myth. Another common myth is they give us X amount of millions of dollars, and that's not more of a misdirection. They give us X amount of $1 million and we don't add programming because the money that they give us is insufficient to cover our operating costs.
I think another good myth to add is if you go on the city's budget, what's listed includes the state money. So
Absolutely, yes. And that's
the outside eye, it looks like they're giving us
A lot.
almost the entire amount of.
That's correct. I had that written in my comments, but for some reason it did transfer over. But I do got a slide with the math, including the math on that aspect, subtracting out the state ESSER funds and moving forward.
Okay.
And then back to over here, we got after the myth busting piece will be you, Mr. Testani, presenting an overview.
Okay.
We're not going to do the same overview as always, inclusive of last year's budget and this year's budget line by line. It's basically going to be going by just important points. We're not gonna, not that it's not all important, but the public doesn't need to.
I agree 100%.
Because we lose their attention. Like if we talk about transportation, line item transportation, by a number, we don't have to say this much for Catholic schools, this much for this school, this much for special education or whatever. Same with like special education. Special education will be just categorized. I'm going through a little quickly because Mike gotta go. Will be categorized in just general categories. Special education costs this amount of budget. The formula every year. Myself, I got to relearn that formula because it's confusing.
No, I think keeping it as simple as possible for the general consumption of the public will give them a more focused purpose when they advocate. And it also gives them, information that they can use when they go to the polls. I mean, if people are not going to provide the public schools with adequate funding, then we need to look in a different direction to people that understand that public schools are critical to the infrastructure and the future of the city of Bridgeport. I mean, if the city wants to thrive, it needs to invest in youth.
Right. And two more myths. ESSER funding. We got ESSER funding. We don't need anymore. That's a relatively new one. And that we run at a surplus because we have the ISF.
We are not running out.
Absolutely, and those are the rumors we got to put to rest right away and throughout the presentation.
Okay.
And then when those slides come up, we'll have the data to back it up, because like when we get to the ISF, we pull an X amount of dollars from the ISF, that means the money's never going to be available again unless it's replenished. And if we have any unusual circumstances where the money's called for, we'll course short.
Yep,
And
and it
it's to the-
can't be replenished if we don't have
Absolutely.
sufficient funding, so.
And then,
I do think the one piece that really has to be hammered home is just to maintain current staffing levels and not adding any additional programs or
Right.
support staff, how much money is needed immediately.
right, absolutely. And
I think that's the biggest piece, because that number is a significant number, and it's also low in comparison because our salary schedule is not as competitive as other school districts. But even at that, we don't get enough to be able to break even.
slide number 2. You got access to that? Yeah, just put on slide number 2.
Right, and now.
Yes, please, yes. Some of the public can see where we're going.
Because that's my main concern, is that we have low staffing levels, and yet just to break even, we don't get the funding necessary to do so.
And then-
Whereas in other school districts, they're talking about additional funding to add critical support staff and programs that, I mean, we're not even there yet. We're just trying to break even, and they cannot give us the financial support to do so.
And to back up again under the myth busting, that'll also come because when we talk about administrative costs, we got some of the lowest administrative costs. I've got a comparison between us and Waterbury from last year's presentation. I want to integrate the positions Waterbury has that we do not have in their front office.
And that's critical to operating a good school district. You need,
That's another.
I have a question, not to
Go ahead.
stop the immediate dialogue. What's our current staff, and is this including our newly hired staff part of the COVID relief money? And so we're asking for money because we've hired, like, for example, the easy teachers.
that wouldn't even, that money won't even include that.
So we're asking for, because current staff is a little bit misleading. So it's not the current staff that's currently working in schools. We're talking about current pre-COVID staff.
We're talking about staffing from the operating budget,
Staff.
not federal dollars that are being used to supplement the staff.
Yes, but when the federal dollars are up,
Those positions are all gone.
so maybe we should emphasize, if we have anything, that if your child is being pulled out to work with these teachers and have this growth,
Oh, I'll speak to all of that, because these staffing levels that we have with the federal dollars don't even get us to where we should be in a pre-pandemic staffing level. It doesn't even get, adding 10 school counselors and 10 social workers still doesn't reduce the caseload of those individuals enough to meet the national standard. Having the easy teachers, all that's doing, it doesn't reduce class size in the primary grades to a level that you would see in the suburbs. I mean, suburban schools didn't have to go hybrid in most cases during the pandemic because they could space out a full class of 14 or 15 kids. So I will hammer those points home.
And to your point, that'll be covered mostly when we discuss the fiscal cliff, because the debt is broken down into two pieces. Our operating cliff, which is about recollection about $6 million deficit, and
Growing.
growing at $4 million from the COVID added positions. Am I correct? I know it's roundabout.
Yeah, and the other issue we have to understand is we won't even be able to, if we have a responsibility to the employees, we won't be able to fulfill the entire federal dollar allotment because we don't want to lay these people off abruptly. So we're going to have to start absorbing them slowly through attrition, which means we won't have access to those additional positions throughout the entire federal grant process, which is another negative because you want to utilize those supplemental services for the entire period, but we have to think about them and their families. So I'm sure some of the other these folks are going to start seeing open positions that are guaranteed and grab them as we get further along in the next year and a half.
No, I don't think we can emphasize enough that COVID funds are not meant to cover operating costs, and it does not
Absolutely not.
absolve, because that's another thing that's being constantly spoken about.
I hear it myself.
Okay, so yeah, that's it on the myth busting, I think, unless anybody else can think of any myths that circulate around every budget year.
We spend all this money on the schools and the kids aren't performing.
Yeah. I've heard that one too. And you know what? I always take offense to that, especially when it comes to comparing our budget to the police budget. What's the first thing they do when the police aren't effective and there's more murders?
Hire
They
more.
throw more money at it, and they hire more police to try to get the crime down. But the same effort is not made with schools when our kids are suffering and there's problems in the school system, which money could clearly solve and help alleviate. We're held to a different metric when it comes to the future of our kids than it's come to possibly arresting them or arresting people. And
I also wouldn't mind if we can present some budgetary information regarding smaller school districts that have a higher in proportion budget that are, when they say more successful. So there may be a school district, and there are, that are maybe half the size, but only a quarter less of the budget. So to show that to fund the school system properly, this is the proportion of student and dollars. So let me look into, because if you see the numbers being thrown out,
yeah, I'm like,
even the mayor of Stratford cut down the amount allocated in the budget from what was requested, but they requested a little over 4%. They're getting a little over 2%. I mean, we're stuck at 0.8%.
That's terrible. And then definitely, I'm using in the presentation, Waterbury as a point of reference. It'll be up later on because Waterbury, $115 million is the contribution, all said.
Big number.
And their district is smaller than ours. So presentations, and then after your presentation, we'll talk about the implications of underfunding. And I've got something I would like you to get on, maybe Ms. Siegel, if everybody agrees to get on, is the budget gap from 1920. We have a list of all the staff positions, the 230 staff positions. If we could get that broken down year by year, because we're going to be able to show this year maybe a 10% structural deficit that's going to carry forward the next year. I mean, whatever adds to it. So what I want is to get these find the 1920 budget gap. So if we could include a slide, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19.
What's been the ones that's positioned?
The cuts and each year's number.
Okay, I have, yeah.
Things.
Yep.
This way, when we say we can't say what we're going to cut, but we can say we can't cut all these positions because they no longer exist. So we got to cut somewhere else. And we already took the low hanging fruit.
Oh, we took some critical commitments to the district, and that contributes then to the challenges that we face today. I mean, we could talk, this won't be hard to talk about, believe me.
And then we'll move on to like how the public can help. Maybe Ms. Brown suggested we just list the federal, state, and local contacts and how to contact them and what to say or what have you. And have a sheet to take people home with people's contact numbers and information.
Yeah, I can have it from our office. We'll get all the city council member information by district, state and local, state reps, state senators, and then our federal folks.
And one thing I think this portion will be really good is that we can speak to whenever the budget becomes a major item to the state, how, when we're on the cause, advocating for funding, how, most of the time there isn't a lot of representation from Bridgeport. And we always talk about how all the other districts has, alarming numbers. Like for one district, it was just multiple people, but how powerful it is by just, if they can sign up and, testify and things like that.
And it wouldn't be a bad idea to start attending now that they're back in person, city council meetings and speaking, rather than one night, to start planting this, so they're hearing it repeatedly
Yeah.
from parents.
Yeah, they used to do that a lot. I don't know what happened.
I know, like I said, these are all suggested. If anybody got suggestions, flip stuff around, it's all fine, well and good.
I think this is good.
Then I got, number 4, Ms. Baptiste Perez could explain how to strongly advocate and what to do if elected officials don't listen and feel comfortable with that role.
I mean, now as I think about it, it does sound duplicative of the last one. How can the public help is the advocacy component. And how can the public, what they can do if the officials don't listen?
Awesome.
There's an
So
overlap.
could there be like maybe a handoff point between the two, or back and forth us?
Well, I also want to be part of the fiscal clip, because I already said that
We'll go
a
back
lot
and
of
forth. We could go
people-
back and forth, because that's gonna be a big piece.
Yeah, a lot of
But
people
then-
don't understand what happens if we go over.
So then maybe we just combine 3 and 4, and then it'd be 1, 2, and 3.
Okay,
So
and
that,
then,
yeah.
and I'll change, and that'll be between Sakalovic, Baptiste
Yep.
Perez,
And then, I
and then we could maybe, we explain, ESSER funding piece, that's gonna be a separate slide.
Uh-huh.
You could take the ESSER funding and explain how the grant funding works, possibly, and how it can't be used for operating costs to shore up. That's gonna be shoring up the myth busting as we go through a presentation.
Are we going to do myth per relevant slide?
Yeah, I'm trying to move it towards that. And I also got, misdirection. Okay, wait. Is there a way to see my comments on here up on the board?
well, you have them on there.
I have some comments on here, but, all right, so let me just go through and I'll read the comments off. I'm flame resist. Told y'all this was. I missed the test on anytime you need to step out will be fine.
Yeah, no, like this one, I think the chart at the top just being enlarged.
We forgot to talk about.
And then maybe a separate slide for that, if Bridgeport was equitably funded with Hartford. I think that needs to be highlighted. I think that's a big piece that people don't really get when you're looking at this. $95 million needs to be really highlighted. That's significant dollar amount that I think it gets lost with.
Okay, I'm missing something.
There's no comments in that.
Yeah, I
page.
know. I don't know what happened. Copy. I'm just trying to find. I don't know what happened to my comments. They vanished.
Go to your sent box.
Really copy for maybe. Oh my God. Do you got the one with my copy? I know I sent it out to a couple of you.
When you find it, if you can send it to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got to send it to me too, because I have.
did the copy I sent you have comments?
Did you send the one I sent to you by mistake?
Because I have the first one you sent.
I got the first one.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my God. All right, well, anyway, I'll just walk through and just talk it through, I guess. Bridgeport, like I said, Bridgeport and Waterbury are gonna be our main component. Let's see, as I said,
Yeah, I don't think,
bottom line numbers on this, we don't need the percentages.
No.
We're still in last year. Yeah, don't need,
I don't think that,
that's not, unless it's just
I
bottom.
think just the total at the top. I don't think you really need this.
We'll have a point around that if you wanna.
Oh, okay, so like, oh, I see. And budget revenue, okay, well,
I don't think you really need
no,
this.
we don't need the cost control.
I have a question. When we're presenting it, are we gonna keep all 40 plus slides? Or are we
Oh.
gonna make it executive?
You want to cut it,
Yeah,
it?
I can-
Cut it down, but,
I will, and then send it to you, and then you guys
Yeah.
send some feedback.
my only concern with that is we have to have a full version available for the public to see, so I don't think we're trying to gloss over anything.
You could take home hard copies.
A few hard copies and,
Digital is online.
and also make sure the link is active for people to look through it.
It's there.
Cause I was like, this is way too long.
And yeah, definitely. And with the core curriculum renewal cycle, this is a budget constraint that we have to actually really think very carefully before we update our students' books and everything like that to get them the most advanced things that other districts get without really a second thought.
Correct.
22, okay, that's last year's. We don't need to go into last year's at all. With the exception of this.
That's a,
Because we're in session and it's being recorded, it might be good to explain to the public why we're not going to go to it at all. Because,
Why we're not gonna go through the file, to every slide?
well, this particular slide, we're not looking into it because our advocacy point for XYZ, we want to keep it concise. So this particular slide, we're not going to discuss, only because we're live now, just be able to explain instead of running over it. I
Right,
would be offended watching this from home.
right. I did leave with this, it's not gonna be an organized meeting. This is basically just a work session. And I understand your point. But, yeah, but,
You could just, 2 seconds, we're not going to discuss this.
yeah, but this particular slide I do want to stop on.
Okay,
that one tells a story, right?
This one I would like to, I didn't see it in a 2020, because it's not.
This was new that Marlene and I had talked about, that I wanted
Right.
to show a more graphic, focused on this, and this is the one that she,
And because I lost my notes, I don't have the exact number up here, but it's. It's the notes. Okay, it's under notes, all right, here. Under this one, I want to add the locality of Waterbury to the bar chart to highlight the local community disparity, local contribution disparity.
so you have that
I
already?
have that and I have the math. I got this from the Waterbury's website, not the public school website, but their website.
City of Waterbury.
And the numbers are comparable. They got the ECS made up of the Alliance
Yep.
and the Alliance portion. So I took the same way the math, Ms. Marlene Siegel did the math to come up with the percentages. She could double check that. I'll send her these numbers. I'd just like to make sure it's correct. The city of Waterbury contributes 37% of the school's budget. And the city of Bridgeport only 27% of the school budget. So having those bars right next to each other will be telling. Waterbury is a very similar district to us. They're financially distressed. They've got a lot of buildings that are not taxable. They have a high poverty rate. They have a similar, almost every similar demographic is similar. Everything you can point out except for the $113 million in local contributions that Waterbury gives to their school district. And I think that would be telling on the bar chart to make sure it's proportional to see that bar highlighted.
Even if that we could cut the differential in half, that would be
It would be
extraordinary.
And if we got to question why the city of Waterbury is able to do these things and willing to do these things and take such a interest in education while our city is not? Is it because our finance people aren't able to do this? Is it because our elected officials aren't able to do that? Is it because our population is not pushing for them to do this? And once we get this point out there, it'll get rid of the rumors that it can't be done.
Right.
Because it can be done. Other cities are demonstrating competency in funding. And I'd also go to show you where Waterbury has a lot more administrators
Oh,
to do all these. I mean, an infinite number. I got the,
and they have coaches, they've been working with teachers, and they have tremendous
they've got,
amount of support staff.
they got dedicated 2 English language supports, I think.
Yep, they have the Department of Instruction.
Separate early childhood. They got a homeless outreach person.
They probably have a direct 211 person too.
So, and that's why it's a suffer. Can you imagine what we could do? What's the difference?
Student volunteer office,
Mhm.
probably.
You could speak to the relationship that is built in Waterbury by connecting the different programs and resources and how that lacks in our own city, especially when it comes around budget time.
And also just burst their bubble that we're not even requesting money to replace those things or supplement what Waterbury's going to have.
We just don't.
Because we're asking for the very bare minimum.
Correct.
Just to
The
stay.
8.5 is the very bare minimum.
Just to keep treading water, basically. Okay, then next,
That's tread,
average percent.
and that's only gonna tread water until the next teacher contract negotiation.
And then, and on this slide, when we look at the percentage growth, this I would just like to highlight, for you to highlight, because this is your slide.
Yep.
The average growth compared to the cost of, you got these decimals, how much of the raises of teachers, how much of the transportation cost? That's not even enough to cover.
We would never be able to, we would lose an arbitration all day long if we tried to propose those increases to the teacher salary schedule. We would lose all day long.
And under SM grants, I think we should be really, really emphatic that these are not for operating costs. I got in my notes here, we strongly, maybe this is where you can come in, Ms. Perez.
These are all the things that'll dry up.
When he gets this will break up your presentation a little bit when we get to the ESSER grants. And Ms. Perez could speak on, Ms. Baptiste Perez. Strongly emphasize that grants can only be spent on certain things, that the money will run out. You'll speak to how it equates to different kinds of budget items in the home and how they make it more relatable to the public. And that'll be right after you list. You know, I don't think you have to go into every such, it'll cover things such as, while you have that slide, maybe.
Yeah, I think highlighting certain things there are important, especially some of the mental health supports that are there that we know kids are not going to be able to go without in just a short period of time, that there's long-lasting social emotional impact that we need to still support. Those are key. And some of the extended day programs that provide not only intervention, but enrichment to kids and keeps them off the streets. The summer expansion of our programs that gives opportunities for more kids to accelerate learning. I mean, these are a lot of things that need to be highlighted.
'23. Clicker stopped working. I turn it off. Oh, did I only have 23 slides on this? Oh. No, Mr. Bennett, feel free to jump in on it.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. But I have a question. We see that in Bridgeport and Waterbury and other towns, in us, I believe Bridgeport is the more students we have, right? We're at the city more, big, larger stuff like that. what we can do, or why the reason they don't want to give us more money. They know, the last one, they know we need more money. They know with the city, we have 37 schools, we large, kids and staff. Why the reason they don't consider, they don't see we need it?
Well, that's the advocacy component
Right.
that we have at the end, and holding the officials accountable, like giving all their contact information.
Have them call.
Have them call. I think it's a little bit extreme to give the voting record, but we can give them access so people can look themselves and see, this is what my representative did and this is how they voted. Empower people to have access to the resources so they can look it up themselves.
Mhm.
I think if it was the other way around, it looks like there's personal attacks.
Correct.
But knowledge is power, and providing that access so people know, because, oh, I voted for so-and-so. So-and-so told me we give so much money to the schools. Then they attend this presentation and they realize it's wrong. And then when the budget comes, and let's just jump a few months ahead, well, no, so-and-so told me that they were going to vote and give more money to the schools. Well, if they have access to the record, they pull it up and they see, well, the schools only got this amount of money, but the police department got this much. Don't call for my vote, because now when it comes to my child in schools, and it comes to personal priorities as well, like I feel like any parent in the school should have access to the information to feel empowered and to realize that their vote really matters, especially the smaller the election, the more powerful one vote is.
Mhm.
And this isn't a presidential election where arguably you could say your vote doesn't matter because of electoral college. This is every vote matters, down to one vote. And so parents, constituents need to feel empowered that their opinion actually matters. And how do we gather people along to actually know this is what's going on, and change what is the unfortunate status quo?
But I feel like they really know we need this money. They know, they see it, and they don't want to give it. They don't want to give it to us.
And that's what,
The purpose, they know. If I know you need to drink that coffee, okay, I'm not gonna give it to Bautista because I don't want to. That's the way I feel. Also, like you say, all these that represent Bridgeport, they know we need to be on top of them. Listen, you represent Bridgeport. Bridgeport School. What you can do, what we can contact them, sit down with them, something,
and that's where the advocacy piece and actually the myth busting comes into play, because every year
They say the same.
they say the same thing. They don't tell us. We don't know where the money goes.
Or they're telling them that we have money.
We have
that
money that
don't.
doesn't exist.
That's like the biggest one.
Yeah.
Where they're quick to say, oh, well, we gave you guys money. Well, what you gave us does nothing for our district.
I think that's where the state statute comes in, an itemized budget or itemized estimate of where the funds are going. People need to see that we spent X amount of dollars and it yielded X amount of results. And this is for any elected officials, because you gotta see how everything connects.
Right.
All right, we bought a curriculum. It's good to, like, from yesterday's meeting for teaching and learning, it was good to see that there's growth on different levels, but if it doesn't show on the slides that we're experiencing internal growth going towards that actual goal, all you see is the high level flat rate failure.
Right.
And so people want to know what they're investing in is actually working, or the fact that we don't have resource centers.
The coordinators would be very important. The math curriculum coordinator, the science, and not the coordinator. What do they call them? They were coordinators, right? Math coordinators.
Yeah.
Coordinators.
We used to have like 12, 13 of them. I can't recall the number off the top of it.
Yeah,
But the problem with that is that's a good point to show the growth, but that goes back to where they use, like, for instance, say last year we needed $10 million. I was just throwing numbers out here, not no aim for accuracy or something. Last year we needed $10 million. We got $8. We got $8 million. We gave you $8 million. Show us your improvement. will show you that we had to cut $2 million from the budget, so there's no improvement, but you gave us $8 million. You understand? Because we couldn't add the services, we couldn't add the enrichments because we were covering the deficit. So that's a little tricky,
No, the ask was for this. The ask would have covered these services.
which could have improved these services to X, Y, and Z right now, because a lot of the problems we're suffering with the reading scores being so low is not having all the access to the enrichments that they could have, but for being properly funded.
Yeah, no, I think that's easy to show on the slide.
Yeah, we could show, we could show.
This is what I asked for, and this is what I got, and you still expected it to be gold.
Right, absolutely. And we could show on some micro level, but I don't think it's,
Even if we run
Conducive
some of the basic levels, reading and math.
this is what,
Major
this is
two.
right. If we show like, this is the improvement we showed with just a little bit of investment from the ESSER funds, because a lot of the stuff is ESSER funds then. And if we get that funding, we could increase it going forward for all times. But I'm not sure how deep we want to delve into that in our presentation, because we get too far down into the weeds, we're gonna lose people. And lose
But
attention.
I think that either we, touch on 2 or 3 of them doesn't hurt. Doesn't have to go through the full thing, but we can explain that this is just 2 things that we're highlighting when there's a whole bucket of them that go unnoticed, unfunded. I mean, I think it's best to just put it in English as much as possible.
Right.
And to keep it simple and
Right.
high level, and because they'll be executive, just tie it, and curiosity will start to spread, like, what? These are the links if you want to see the teaching and learning meeting. If you want to see, this is the link to the data on school board webpage.
Right.
I mean, that's the key to transparency. If we want to give us an example and they want more additional information, provide them access to the information. But know that our simple big goal for this presentation is to keep the minimum status quo. So if this
Right.
is offending you, that this is the level. If we don't maintain the minimum status quo, not including all these extra ESSER teachers, which is why I asked with the current staff define what current is, because we're going to have less than that. We're not even asking for that. We're just,
Prepared.
and that's what people need to understand. It's like, if every year you're being cheap, and then one year you feel like you're being expensive. No, you have a whole history of being cheap. And now what we're asking for is probably what you should have been given throughout.
Right, absolutely. I agree. All right, so,
Question.
Yeah.
Who invites, so like when we did them a few, last year before last, we had only a few individuals from the city. Like, are we gonna really push to get
We're
some
gonna-
real representation?
yes, we're gonna try to get,
Because that's who, outside of
we
the
want to
parents and
invite
stuff.
right, town committee members this year.
Yeah,
Town committee members select the city council who's gonna run. And
correct.
if we could convince the town committee members, and the city councilors as well will be invited in each district. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I could.
Sorry.
No
I
no
was
worries. This is just,
Thinking as
like I
we're,
said, it's gonna be sloppy. It's not formatted or anything. And to your point, I'm thinking about 5 meetings, 2 districts each, invite all the town committee members. I mean, everybody's invited and welcome to come, but constructively invite the town committee members in each district and the city councilors. And also, when we get something all wrapped up together, to email this to all of them. So
Good.
they have it. And so later on, when they say you weren't told, we can forward the email to the public. Yes, you were.
Yeah.
and we can get this on Parent Square too for.
Yes,
parents.
absolutely. Yeah, I spoke with Mike
I've
about that.
okay.
In those 2 districts, we're gonna do at a time, the parents go over those districts, come learn about your school budget, what will happen if money's short, blah, blah, blah.
And also nonprofit organizations in the area should be aware of it as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the
And
body
any program that works with our schools, because that can also, one thing that Mike was talking about was that right now, all of these nonprofits have money to do program in the schools, but once that money is gone
We're oversaturated.
with
wow.
with nothing, so they'll understand too that they have a part in advocating for the same funds, and
Absolutely.
we can do more program if there was more dollars, but there isn't.
Yeah, I mean, to show what and again, this is just use one example. These are the programs at this school. Once the COVID money's gone,
These are gone.
Those programs are going to fall behind.
okay, and so I think inviting those organizations is going to be key, because if my child is in a pro after school program, Build On, just making it up, and I know it's not going to be as active, or even probably shouldn't use a real organization, but if my child's in the X organization after school that has federal dollars, and my child's just in, it's a high school program, they're a freshman, yeah, they get this great help freshman and sophomore year, and it's no longer going to exist.
Right.
And I think having the students involved and the parents who have their students involved know, what they're losing and what they're going to get in place is key. Because if someone was to tell, and they have to kind of look at the value of it. And I don't think any parent necessarily doesn't feel this way, but my child is worth having these programs. My child is worth being as prepared as possible for the real world. And if they really understand that what we're asking for is just the bare minimum.
Mhm. And that's something else when we're talking about the advocacy. This is an important, very, very important part. If people want to be advocates for the public schools, they got to advocate responsibly. We have a duty to our constituents and to advocacy groups to fight for the money. But the advocacy groups themselves have a responsibility to advocate for the right amount of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I bring this up every time I bring up advocacy. One year we needed $8 million. They came up with, one of the advocacy groups came up with $2 million. Big community forum. And the effect was to get the mayor to promise $2 million, but we needed 8. In effect, giving the mayor permission to underfund us by $6 million and let him put a feather in his cap that at least we got something.
Yeah, no.
And that's highly irresponsible advocacy. I mean, it might look good for the group that we got the mayor to promise this, the mayor to promise that, but we did not need that. The advocacy groups need to take directions from the professional finance people who tell us this is what we need to operate our school district efficiently, and advocate for that amount. Don't be on different pages, everybody on a different page. I mean, we can't control people's speech, but if you're going to call yourself an advocate, you're going to have to advocate for what is needed, not for what you think you could get.
Well, if the advocates are going to ask for more than the 8.5
That's perfectly
million,
fine,
I'm
yes.
perfectly fine with
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
But not the under.
But advocacy
8.5
groups
is
should
the middle-
never.
is the minimum threshold that we need for operating costs.
An advocacy group, I'm going to say this again for public consumption. An advocacy group should never undercut the number being asked for by the people you have elected to serve you and advocate for you. And if anybody wants to ask me about that again, feel free to call me, or certain people know who I'm talking to. So, okay, let me get myself back centered. That's been a pet peeve for years. Okay, now I want to move on, but we're having trouble with the PowerPoint. This information has already been made publicly available, and I do not want to end this because the PowerPoint is gone. We are currently on slide number 24, and we're talking about the operating budget request 2022-23. Anybody who wants to look back and see will be able to. There's nothing to hide here. And we've got the numbers of the city share, current and the ask, versus the state share and operating costs, and a couple other small things for grants. What I want done here is I want to break down the city and state share per pupil for Bridgeport and Waterbury. But Waterbury's not on this slide. I would like to add it and ask, because last time I did it, I would think we were asking for an increase of like 800 a student, or some infinitesimal amount per student increase, which makes the numbers more manageable in people's head. And that's just simple division by pupils and the shares. I think
I think this is one of those spaces where, like, when I say plain English, because a lot of them don't understand that that's how it's calculated per student.
Right.
And once they start comparing it to other districts, it will make more sense, but I don't think they get it. So, and that's not saying that they're not to the level of understanding, but I just think, you know, as you look at this particular slide, it's going to really take us really explain it. Like, this is what we get per kid.
Right. And it makes the numbers a little more friendly. When you talk about an operating budget of $277.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
People can't, thank you, here's, thanks, people can't relate to these numbers. They cannot relate to these numbers. But they can relate to a couple of thousand per pupil, 14,000, 17,000 per pupil, a couple $100 increase, $1,000 increase per pupil. That's a bit more relatable to people than what we're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
We're not asking for double, we're not asking for triple, we're asking for X amount of dollars. And that's just to cover essential need, non-discretionary costs. This is where we're coming into, you get into the ISF again, and it's important to note that the ISF basically functions as like a rainy day fund. If we did not have the money available to cover the back gap, which we're using, you'll see here it's broken down into two pieces, $4 million and $2 million. If we didn't have that money to cover the gap, we would need to ask for $6 million more this year. And that's where the structural deficit starts, that $6 million right there. Because once that internal service fund is gone, it's gone and it's not replenished. But those $6 million in operating costs every year is still there. And we got to find a way to emphasize those type of things throughout the presentation. And that'll take care of, that's one of those previously mentioned rumors that we discussed. And on the next slide, we're just going to go to the bottom line with a number. We're not going to do it all, but this is where all the money goes. For $5,150,000, emphasize that number, not the breakdown. And how even between, that's just staff raises. $5 million in staff raises. So between what was the state giving us? They're trying to give us $50,000 now after we're supposed to get two.
Oh, no. Oh, you talking about the 1.5 million to 11,000?
Oh, hold on, yeah. So even if $1.5 million even if the state would give us the promised $1.5 million, and the city gives us two like last year, that's $3 million. Look at the cost of collective bargaining agreements. $5 million extra dollars just to pay our staff. So that's not even covered right there. So that's why this rest of it becomes, the rest of the things we got to pay that we're covering through the ISF is a fiscal cliff. When that money's gone, that $6 million in cost is still there. But the increased cost is not going to be $5 million 2 years down the line. It'll probably be like $7 or $8 million down the line because the staff raises will keep increasing. And if we keep getting funded at the level we're getting funded with no increase, the gap is going to keep growing and growing. What's this?
And then if we can't afford to pay our staff, the odds of them wanting to stay in Bridgeport, slim to none.
Period.
Right,
We just saw on the highway, Norwalk is advertising in our area for our teachers.
Oh, no one been advertising in Bridgeport.
But like they're getting bolder to the point where it's like billboards and things. So it's just like, everyone's out for what we have. So we have to figure out something.
Right, and the next slide is 2023, closing the budget gap. I just bypassed two slides. Let me back up to them. That's the clarity. just the city request. We've went over that in the thing. Okay, we're asking the city for $8.5 million. That's on the slide as well. Okay, and the state, and it breaks down the percentage, 3.3% increase for the state. We've been getting under 1% for years. And then we gotta have to note again how the ISF contributes to the fiscal cliff, and that, because they got our strategies, gap resolution strategies, grant revenue, there's some Title I stuff that could be used to pay for some stuff. That's one of the few cases we can use grant revenues, but they gotta be still spent for that particular purpose. Some things have dual purposes. But the most important one here is a gap resolution strategies, 2 years. Deficit percentage mode. We need to go into a couple of things there where when a teacher retires mid-year, they're not replaced, we use substitutes for the rest of the year past a certain point. So our students are different teachers every day for the rest of the school year when this time comes. And how part of our finger crossing budget-wise is that experienced teachers retire because they're the highest paid. And it takes a little while longer to replace them with inexperienced teachers who are lower paid. And that's something that's used to balance the budget year to year, something that's actually built in because it does take time.
You know, this question I'm about to ask, I understand Mike left or Mr. Testani left, but I wonder if there's a trend to how many teachers in the middle of the year actually retire. Because that in itself is problematic if we have the end of a few months left into the school year,
Right.
and it's just substitute teachers.
Right, and I misspoke a little bit as well because it's not just retiring and leaving in the middle of the year. It's hard to recruit for areas like science and mathematics that we can't find teachers, so we gotta cover those with long-term service as well, and there's also savings in there. And the number's been, since I've been on the board, the number of that number has been relatively consistent.
Like mid-year retirement or
No,
anything?
just the gap was the teacher attrition, and that has been relatively consistent for my time. I mean, there hasn't been any wide fluctuations, or I would have been able to pick up on that. But we could get that at a later time if you like.
Yeah, I mean, again, for the public presentation, if we can show, it's a little bit construed, but like COVID, this many teachers retired mid-year, because that would be a last year comparable, or look at the 2017, 2018 to 2019, 2020 is COVID, or start of COVID, and have those numbers available where that in itself too, if I'm a parent watching that, so you mean to tell me the odds of my child's teacher, there's a chance my child may just have a sub for the rest of the school year? It would make me want to just throw the whole system away or move, which is what a lot of people do.
And the alarming part is, all subjects are important, but the alarming part is when it's the subjects like the math, the reading, language classes that we know that when they do test scores, those are the major focus for that data that they're getting. And if you don't have someone who's experienced, not saying they're not experienced, but that is not their sole subject of interest, and they may not be that well at it, we're robbing our students
Absolutely.
of the opportunity to do well and compete against other schools
Right.
because we don't have consistent teachers.
And Bridgeport has another point being, Bridgeport has a hard time recruiting teachers because of the low salary, because
Correct.
of the budget. Everything, all roads lead back to money. That's why I like to sit in all the committee meetings, because with finance, everything touches finance. If Baba wants something, if Mr. Benahan wants something on students and families, if you want a program somewhere for the ad hoc and the personnel want to hire more, everything, all roads lead through the money. Every single thing, nearly nothing is going to be free to us. It's all going to lead to money. Even if somebody's using a building for an extra day and the lights got to stay on, that leads to money. Every penny counts, and it's really frustrating to try to get that across outside of this board.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just think when people see how all roads lead to money, people want to see the road.
Right.
and the relevant path. Like if I want to get to New York, I want to see 95 South or the Parkway
Mhm.
South. I don't care about North. So we have to show particular paths and show like, we're trying to use cars and they have us running the school system on bicycles. Of course, we're going to fall behind to someone that's driving a car if we're on a bike. So and that's going to be a hard picture to sell because it's not just, it sounds like, oh, we're asking for so much money, but it's a historical trend of underfunding.
Absolutely. And we try to emphasize it. And I'm sure when we do this presentation, we're going to come up with stuff like what you ladies are mentioning now. Try to prepare like a script in your head, how you want to present these parts when it comes up, because it's not going to be static. It's going to be fluid. I think it's going to be fluid. At least that's the intention.
Will we take questions from the audience?
Yes, that I consider either the end or natural breakpoints. I think maybe it's best at the end because there may be some question. I always like at the end because there may be some questions that are answered early on that don't need to be asked. And also to handle the questions, I'd like to have a certain format to the questions. No disrespect to our fellow board members, but this needs to flow in a certain way. We could take questions from the audience and we'll start with the board members. And then we'll move on to city council and then we'll move on to the general public. In that matter, it's just that we're the most familiar with the budget and we could have a flow going.
We have a flow going, but if nobody raises their hand but a parent, yeah.
Yeah. There's yeah, absolutely, yeah. But out of respect for the elected officials and fellow board members, they should go first, and then. But if they don't have any questions, of course, move on to the next year. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah and no, because I feel like for the most part, we know the budget, so this shouldn't be anything new to any of us and any of the city council, so that the point of us having the presentations will bank on that we'll have questions from city council because they probably want to, add to whatever. But the idea of it is that the parents are also, if they're coming out and they're made aware, maybe put them before. So then if they have questions that are not understandable for them, we can explain it and bounce it off each other type of thing. And then, because city council know why they're there. It's not rocket science for them. They know.
Yeah, and then to that point, yeah.
Because it's really.
They're there to get information. And they will have their own question and answer period during the budget presentation that Ms. Siegel does in front of the city council.
Yeah, I think if we leave questions towards the end, we just leave it in a sign up first come first serve form. Either you line up at the mic and it doesn't matter if it's a parent and then the person behind them is city council. Like to a certain extent, this advocacy is in part could impact the way constituents look at their voters, and technically everybody's vote is equal. Right. So I'd prefer depending on the outcome, right? Because in the perfect world, I'm going to see this auditorium packed.
In a perfect world.
God willing.
I mean,
in a perfect world.
If we were 10 minutes away, north, south, or east in a different county, conversations about money for their child's education would be packed.
It would.
So in an equitable world, not even perfect, parents, in part, and that has nothing to do with our presentation, but just spreading the word of why this is important. Because to a certain extent, the advocacy component is a bit of a put up or shut up. You can't complain or say you're apolitical, but then want to complain about the school. Mm-hmm. You can't complain and say, I feel like I'm preaching right now, but
preaching to the choir.
Yeah. Or to my 3 virtual viewers and maybe the 5 or 6 YouTube viewers. But yeah.
Well, I'll tell 2 friends and they'll tell friends. So,
But no, yeah, no, that's really how it works. Just tell two friends, very simple. You know, what I learned from yesterday's meeting, we didn't have science books. Maybe that's a misnomer or a
like,
unified,
soon.
but, you know, something as basic as that. And the school's asking for money for the budget, that would at least grab some parents' attention.
Mhm. And to add to that too, I think, you know, based off like how we want to answer questions. So it's also like your presentation style. So for me, like if I'm going to be up there talking about advocacy, I'm one of those that talk to the crowd and I expect the crowd to talk back to me. So like, you know, in that moment, there may be opportunities for them to ask questions concerning how they sign up, what they got to do, you know, if that fits for how you present without it taking you off of track of your
Right.
presentation. That does not mean you have to do it that way. But if I'm up there, I'm gonna read the room. I'm gonna see and I'm gonna do my best to get them engaged where there is an opportunity for them to ask questions without me losing track of what we're trying to aim for in our presentation.
Right.
I
Yeah,
think that's how you left the advocacy last.
Right. That's a,
Because yeah.
see, the problem, I see a potential problem, an issue with
Of them
this,
yelling.
with disruptors.
And we've had that.
How it was done in the past, a long time ago in the past. We haven't had the issue lately, but.
We haven't, but
Mr. Testani, when he did the presentations, he took verbal questions, but my very first interaction with the budget at a hearing was when they were running school buses to,
but look what
and
that
then
was
we,
though.
and then we had to submit our questions in writing. And somebody collected all the questions, and then we answered whatever questions were written down. If people got a question while somebody went in, we answered all the questions that were written down. This way we won't get people preaching from the pulpit. I don't know if that makes sense. But trying to disrupt the conversation. Like for instance, say we got an unfriendly person in government who wants to throw shade and create discord. Somebody's question will be like, so that $2 million that just disappeared or something like that, and there's no such thing, but that cat's out of the bag
And
and
now
it's on the floor and what have you.
what we really can't, we can control it as best as we want, but you know, we have those that are in government that have shown up to our sessions and they just speak and they just speak. And we have to always get up there and, you know, basically speak to the matter that fact is untrue. And sometimes they don't even know it's untrue, but they're saying what they've heard from their counterparts. So long as we have enough evidence, and I'm not saying to turn this into a yelling match or a debate, but to be able to clear the air after that person has spoken to make sure that the public walks away with the right facts.
Okay, so question, all right, so at the
That makes sense.
microphone,
Control the questions the same way pursuant to Robert's rules. Then that way we keep the comment or questions towards the end
right,
and we limit it to a certain amount of time. We could limit it. I don't want to limit it in case it's a very long line. Like I want people to get their questions out, but in respect, it depends on the turnout. We could have
Right.
in an equitable world,
right, and we state the rules in the beginning.
one question, 2 minutes. We'll comment to the best we can, but if there's something, we'll keep note and respond back to everybody in the public. So please sign up, put your email address, take attendance, contact tracing.
Right, that's what I got to do. I'm sorry, I cut you off, but as far as 2 minutes,
Well, no.
just ask the question because it's not public comment. it's
No,
just a
but I'm
question.
just saying, the idea is to keep it organized. This is the rule, this is the expectation with the questions is that it's strictly regarding, this presentation or is aligned with the presentation. If they want to, why did we get rid of the Student Volunteer Association? Well, it looks like back in, let's see, Student Volunteer Office was cut in 2017, 2018. Why was it cut? And we can at least address it with fiscal costs and
Absolutely.
the operating costs.
Right, and any questions we can't answer, or can't be answered, we'll take the information and we'll get back to them when we could get a better answer from, either Ms. Siegel or well, Mike's gonna be there, but if there's a question we can't handle, we could have, it referred to Ms. Siegel and we constructively make sure that person is responded to.
Yeah, one question per person, and if they have another question after that, which would suck for me, because I would be around over and over, you get back online, because I want to respect everybody's time and questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Bennett, you don't have to wait to be recognized, just find a pause and jump in.
Okay, no.
It's a little, different.
When you say, oh, if you don't have an answer, we wait till Mr. Testani or Mr. Go answer. For me, when because I know I've already go to another forum and, parents go, why you don't answer me? You are professionals, guy, stuff like that. It would be much better to find out how we can answer. I don't want the parents go away. Oh, look, I come here and they don't answer me, because I know Ms. Siegel, she's very professional and she will have the answer. Or Mr. Testani will answer that. Maybe correctly, but at least it would good to give a nice answer so the parent, they don't go, further, they don't get upset, they don't get angry. And, that's my opinion. We don't want.
We gotta explain to them. You and I are very well versed in the parent engagement policies, something like that. Now, I'm gonna give you an example. I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything. What does it say on page 23 of the bylaws of the PAC bylaws?
Which one?
Page 23.
Right
You
now.
can't answer me right now, right?
Of course.
But you'll be able to
Yeah.
answer me later. And if I ask you that question, you tell me, I'm sorry, Mrs. Skalovic, I can't get back to you right now.
Okay.
Give me your name and contact information and I'll get back to you. And then you go home. You look at page 23 and you get back to them and follow, because the budget is, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of
I know.
pages. There may be questions that we can't answer.
Yeah, it's you.
Probably even questions Ms. Siegel can't answer without going into our data. And she's lived with this for quite a while every year.
Yeah.
So we got to be prepared to not be able to answer every single question. And the public got to respect that fact that we're out there giving them as much information as we're reasonably possible, and we can get back to them.
And actually follow
up on that.
Yeah.
And then I'll give them, oh, wow, they do what they say.
Mhm.
Okay, let's move on a bit. Where am I now? Okay, closing the gap resolution strategies. Okay, now we got position consolidation. They like to use friendly words on this.
What does it mean in English?
In English, it means less jobs,
And that's what we.
less
need to say.
employees,
That's what we need to say.
consolidated. I mean,
Because even when
there's
they.
no,
do the-
there's no, what we were talking about, consolidating schools. Consolidating 2 schools into 1 school means closing 1 school. Consolidating employees means to eliminate some employees, whether by whatever way it happens. If it's by attrition, it means not hiring another employee. It means if it comes down to it way in a little bit in the future, we have a history of layoffs right here, 231 positions and
Well, those are positions that are no longer here.
no longer
so-
here, and we can't get them anymore. So if we need to eliminate another 231 positions in the future, we can't go back to these positions and eliminate them again. We got to eliminate 2 positions. And that's something that Nasty emphasized.
So when they say, so I don't understand your example with the fiscal cliff. I mean, so what? Well, if we don't address the fiscal issues now, potentially
Right.
in the next few years. Yes,
Yeah,
in the next few years,
Yeah. And there'll be a list of possibilities.
I think the list of possibilities keeps it real with people. I don't want to hear these, consolidation, we're unified. No, people will lose jobs. You will lose the convenience of having that school being right there where you could take your child to. That teacher that you really like, they finally saw the sign up on the highway saying, go to Norwalk. The realistic possibilities of not reaching our goals fiscally, and it's not even if we don't receive the funds that we barely need to keep the minimum status quo, because that's what we're asking for, will result in these potential impacts in the next few years.
And there's no way I know they like to say it's not gonna, but there's no way that if we're facing a fiscal cliff of $20 to $30 million, when these ESSER funds run out, that we won't affect the class and we won't affect instruction. There's no possible way. There's no way to pretty it up. I see possibilities of possibly closing schools. I know it's a tough one. But if we don't have the money to operate the schools, we don't have to operate the schools. Yes, some of our schools, they'll talk about some of our schools are under-enrolled, which is true. But when you move an under-enrolled school, say that school closes, those kids go somewhere else and the school becomes closer to capacity and bigger class sizes. That's affecting a classroom.
I think saying just that is what needs to be done. You know, removing, you know, the bigger words that parents is just going to go over their head. And we're not saying that they're not educated enough to know them. We're not saying that at all. It's just when I come to a meeting at 5:00 on a Wednesday night to hear about the budget, I want you to explain to me in plain English that you mean buses being cut, schools being cut. What do I need to do to make sure that doesn't happen? And I think when you were talking about how sometimes they come there, you know, they show up when the issues that are, you know, the largest plaguing the community, then it's like, oh my God, they heard you. And we don't want them to be at that place when it comes to this particular budget. So that's why these forms are gonna really have to put some fire under somebody's feet so they can understand, like, hey, this is really gonna happen in 2 to 3 years. Well, it's already happening, but it's gonna be even worse.
Right, and absolutely, and as having sat through these and voted for some of these cuts,
Yeah.
these are the hardest things to do. I mean, it brought a lot of contention to the board. What should be cut, what should not? The SEGA would present us with they suggested cuts. Some board members didn't like it. We fought over it. It was a very contentious time on the board because some people like this, some people wanted this cut, some people wanted that cut. And the worst part for me is when we would consider closing one of the schools. I like to get out in the public. I like to talk to people, no matter the issue, no matter how tough it is, and get their point of view. And I'll feel the decision I'm making. And these parents that were fighting for the school, I can't remember which ones it was, maybe Hall, Edison, or at the time, and they were fighting for the school and they were tears. And luckily it didn't have to happen, but by the time they get to us on the board, it's too late. The money's not there. The money's not there. When, like the curriculum coordinator, guidance, who else? Math instructional coaches. Lost a total of 16. When I voted to lay off the 10, I had to look them in the eye and talk to these people I laid off. When I met them at after the vote, they were still employed and they did the math meet. I said, I'm sorry, there was no choice. And it's the hardest thing in the world to tell a person that you don't have a job. Even harder is the impact we don't see is that the children who lost access to these coaches. And by the time they get to us on the board, we got to emphasize, it's too late by the time you're up there. The money is gone. The decisions something's got to give. And I think I went on a little tangent there. And then deficit position control, some of that we talked about. Curriculum renewal, waiting for budget, what's next? Yeah, and they go into position control.
So for this presentation, are we gonna change up the funding language, like the consolidation to the realistic language?
I think it would be better to have interruption points for Mike. Not interruptions, but breaks. Like after he does this slide and the language is presented in, one of us steps in and clarifies. All right, I guess we could decide that amongst ourselves afterwards. Who hits what slide? And if I see nobody naturally jumping in, I'll jump in on the slide because I'm familiar with most of them.
So we are keeping the language in.
I think we should keep the language in.
And then just maybe.
Yeah, the language and the formatting this year, with the exception of just putting in that one little extra
So then, so as we are going through the language, we just need to clarify, maybe, and
Correct.
maybe just break down like what some of these words mean.
Right. And if Mr.
Now,
Tess-
we're not dumbing, I don't
No,
want to.
no, we're making
not
a moment.
dumbing it
It's not
down.
dumbing it
It
down,
is-
because not everybody's an accountant, not everybody's,
Right,
not everybody sat with us 3 or 4 times like we have this year. I've sat with this thing like 16 to 20 times already. But, it'll be a
Language is-
natural pause point. So Mr. Testani will go, we're gonna do, consolidate positions, this and that. And then when he pauses for a breath, one of us will speak. What is meant by position consolidation means having less employees to do the same amount of work, and there'll be less employees and whatever, and just break it down into the language. It needs to be broken down. Will have a dual effect. An effect of emphasizing the language and also giving Mr. Testani a pause point to breathe, and I'll give the people a chance to see different voices, because I don't know, when I always look through these presentations and stuff, one person talking for the whole time,
and
it gets hard to follow after a while.
what I would also say too, and I know this is probably something we can't do right now, and I emailed you about this, is that this presentation is long.
Yes,
And we have to be mindful that we sit through Mrs. Siegel's presentations, and she does a great job at doing them, but we also have to keep in mind that these are parents who may be coming, who
Right.
have to go to work the next day, may have kids, and we need to find a way to capture as much as we can without it feeling overwhelming. But
right,
if we can pinpoint some of the major slides
yes,
and get it into, it may seem impossible, Ms. Siegel and everyone, get it into like 10, maybe 10 slides, because 20-something slides is not going to do it
Right.
for parents. And
yeah, I'm thinking of trying to keep it about an hour and change, little under an hour for the presentation, and then move on to questions and answers.
yeah,
That's with our interjections, introductions, and
Yeah.
call to order.
but even with presentation is, that's fine hour wise, but visually,
Yes,
that's a lot.
yeah, and as first discussed, I had a concern about the people thinking of hiding something, but that was resolved by maybe a link and having a
Right,
packet for people there.
right.
So we're not trying to hide anything, it's just,
No,
For
no, I agree, but like for the community's
Right.
perspective, I think it should definitely be consolidated.
yes.
No,
Consolidated or made less.
their
yes.
study, the effective presentations have around about 10 slides.
Yes.
We want to tackle our big goal, or our big
Mhm.
points, which includes, but it's not limited to, we don't get our fair share from the city historically. That's
Right.
one of the big points. Not blaming anyone that's in office now. What's done in the past is in the past, but the past has an impact on the future and the present. So this is what this is the minimum acts. I cannot emphasize more. It's the minimum acts. Because even when we say our current staff, that's misleading. It's not the current staff. It's not the staff that's in the school now, because we're going to lose teachers. Those coaches that your child have now, that's helping them catch up from COVID, we're going to lose them. Those are ESSER funded, and when ESSER is gone, we're back to the minimum status quo.
Hello?
And that's why the comparison of like, well, if Waterbury is able to do it, why not Bridgeport?
Right, that's gonna,
And I guess this is a point to add to the advocacy is, what is Bridgeport doing now? And maybe this is something I don't think is on the slides, but what is Bridgeport doing? How does the city get funds to give to the schools? It's by taxes. And normally this is what kills most people or gets homeowners infuriated, is that it's been through the property taxes. And so the way to bypass that is with businesses. And so if you're not, and big business at that, so if you see a large tax abatement being given out to wealthy individuals who do not need it, just know that those tax abatements, those tax dollars should have been applied to the schools. So when you're saying, oh, we don't, if you hear an official, if you say they don't have the money, but you had money to give a tax break, why?
Mm-hmm.
And that's also in the advocacy component, because I can imagine people getting offended by that. but your business decisions and to the city of Bridgeport is a business, and how it wants to allocate its money is a business investment. And the lack of wanting to invest in our schools, if you're not willing to put money in our schools, then you're implying that our children are not worth investing in. And so and if you're not taxing if you're giving businesses money, if the city's giving businesses money but won't give the schools money, it's like, that's part of the accountability trail. It's like, people always say, well, what does it mean to hold someone accountable? Well, when you say you're gonna look at people, are you looking out for your people when you're giving a tax break or giving companies money to finish certain projects? Are those projects going to build wealth into the community, taxable wealth that will take the pressure off of homeowners? And will that money actually go to the schools? Because the city as a business can tax all they want, different businesses and entities, but then it still has to get down to the schools and not part entities like the police department.
Right, and they like to talk about how the city's moving forward, but we haven't moved forward with a real taxable. The grant list is growing, but the tax base isn't. Now, speaking of slides, we could not include. I was suggesting moving this slide right here up to just after 22, but I don't think we need this slide at all. When we discuss the operating budget, we could just list these things verbally.
Yep, and it could be part of the bigger packet.
Correct. Yeah, operating budget, do I have anything on that? Okay, this is the low administration costs, I think, because that's another thing we're talking. Our administration costs, if you can look, let's say point 2. Wait, hold on. Instruction. Wait, hold on. Instruction support, administrative costs 0.9% of the budget. Not even 1% of our budget goes to administration, and that's pretty low, because we always hear all these high-paid employees, and a lot of them been cut from the top. So I think, if not included in this slide, we got our administrative costs are less than 1% of our budget. It's just got to be mentioned. But I would also like to compare our administration to Waterbury's and all the positions that they got because they're better funded. So. That's just a breakdown of support status from the different departments. Details we definitely don't need. That's already gone. Okay, operating budget benefits. And now keeping in mind reduction of days. Yeah, $64 million. We should just mention this $64 million as costs we can't control. This is benefits. This is not money going into the classrooms, going into teachers, which they will deserve. But we don't have any control over. We don't have any control over a great majority of our budget costs, which are personnel. Okay, what else? I'll get down. Budget requests. Put in enrollment. We would have already discussed that. Grant from the services.
We would have already touched on that portion.
Right. Yeah, so I don't even have notes on this, so that's the grants I'm not really.
Well, that's good. Those are areas where we can almost friendly consolidate.
But at some point, not this next go around, I would like to put together a budget advocacy group, because there's certain things that you could advocate for in front of the federal government, some of the grants, and some of them you could for the state and some of them local. Now this year, I think this is a very important slide coming up. In fact, I'm just skipping through the ones that Pillars of excellence. This one. This one's one of the money ones. This is, if possible, I would like to
Make it clear.
make this. Not the slide itself, but this is the bridge. This is from the Bridgeport Board of City of Bridgeport website. Now this slide, if you look at the biggest piece, it says 39.3% of the budget is going to education. This is one of the misleading misdirections that we spoke about earlier. Anything. Interesting to note, even though this is the 21-22 budget, you notice it says 39.3%. This is actually a drop of the percentage of last year's claim of 41%. So even their claim went down. So they're giving less of a percent of budget last year than they did the year before. And of course, when the mayor's new budget come out, there'll be a new pie chart with new numbers. Now, on the next slide coming up, I break it down. You see the yellow. Pardon me. You see the yellow highlighted area? Is it possible to make that bigger, please? Can it? Okay, no worries. Sorry. Well, I'll let you know what the numbers say. You look on that line, you will see BBOE administration, and you'll see that number $167,238, and that number is the number that the state of Connecticut sends to the city of Bridgeport to fund our schools. That number does not
Are
come.
you telling me that the city of Bridgeport is using state dollars but portraying it as their own contribution?
I would say it's misleading at best, because this pie chart makes it look like the majority of the city budget is going. But when you take out that money, I did the math here. I think just got to do a quick run through of the math, just because this math is very boring, I guess, to some people. You take out that $167,238, then $167,238,845. You come up with $430,873,723 of city tax dollars total budget. You divide this by the amount of money that the city of Bridgeport gives to the schools from its own tax dollars by that new number, and you get 16.48%. So if you look at the last slide, that says 39%. And if you refigure that as 16%, can you imagine how small that slice of the pie is from city tax dollars? And if you reallocate all those percentages, all of the other categories will grow. Most significant to grow would be public safety. And I think we need to probably make a new pie with the new numbers, reallocating the percentage to show the differences of city tax dollars. Because it's important to note that these are city tax dollars we're talking about when we're talking about the city budget. And it's misleading to show that pie chart looking like 41%, because that's something I've heard our city councilors speak, because like us, many of the city councilors, they're not accountants.
They're not.
They rely on what they're told. And what they're told them when they see this, I've heard this repeated by several city councilors, and I'm going to call out any names, that we give almost half of our budget to education.
And
I
think
wish.
most of ours go to retirement.
I wish that was the case. If that was the case, we wouldn't have to have these forums.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, since the state gives it to the city, could the city give it to another department?
No, straight flow through to us.
Oh, so it's not, the city is just a middleman,
Correct.
and the money, it's really just coming through the state
From the state to the Board of
to
Education.
the Board of
Being
Education.
parked temporarily with the city of Bridgeport.
good to know.
Okay, and that's all I got on the slides. You just speak about a little, how we want to schedule these things. We talked about 2 districts at a time, five meetings. I want to get it done. I want to try to get at least 2 of them done before the mayor drops his budget on the city council. I believe that's on April 1st. I don't know why. I'm pretty sure it's April 1st, but now it's just hit me that April 1st happens to be April Fool's Day. So I don't know if there's any significance to that.
That's a Friday.
So if we could get at least 2 of the meetings done before then, all of them complete before spring break and before the city council gets their presentation from the Board of Education on the budget, so they can have a little clearer mind and they could probably ask more informed questions than they have in the past.
So you're saying right now we are on the 16th. So you're saying between the 21st and the 28th, those 2 weeks before April 1st?
Okay, I want at least 2.
2 by then?
2 by then. And I'm thinking we should have 1 on a Saturday for people who, I don't know how y'all feel about coming out on Saturday, for people who are unable to
Attend during the week.
During the week.
All right, so the only Saturday that's available before April 1st is the 26th
That's
of
fine.
March. That's next week, Saturday.
Is the 26th one of the weeks here you would be available? If not, we could push the Saturday
No,
itself.
I'm available.
The second, I won't be available. Well, if you're doing it later in the day, I can't be.
Right, so no, if Spurs is available on Saturday, and then we
On
just
the
got to check the
26th?
availability of Mr. Testani. That's all. And then 26th, what day is today? Yeah, okay, so yeah, that leaves us plenty of time for the first one. And the other ones could be Tuesday, Wednesdays, we could just hop around in spaces where, are y'all both available like at 6:30 on any given day?
As long as we don't have no committee meeting.
Right, that's all I said, that's all I'm saying. I'll bounce around the committee meetings. I want the board members to all be able to attend if they so wish.
Yeah, as long as there's no committee meetings, I'm cool. And
I heard, what days again? Sorry, I was looking at my calendar.
Just non-committee meeting dates.
is it
Like
like we're all over?
nothing firms, instead of just us trying to find, all right, the 15th today, and, because we still gotta figure out
Their schedule.
Connie's schedule and coordinate best between the groups.
So let's bank on the 26th as a Saturday.
As a
with
Saturday.
Testani, and then we'll wait to hear back for those dates that are not committee meeting dates.
Right, and is there, any days between that are absolutely impossible for either one of us?
For me, it's always the second Wednesday,
Second Wednesday.
5 to
second
6, and then I do a lot on Saturdays. So if we're doing a whole lot of Saturdays.
No, I think just one would be sufficient.
Okay, so then I'm good for the 26th. If it's early, are we doing it earlier in the day? Because remember, it's Saturday, like, are we doing it like a,
I don't know, what do we think is best? You know, are people gonna
Early
want to?
afternoon.
yeah, like a early, like a 1
Get to sleep,
2,
yeah, that sounds about right.
or maybe a 2 3.
And keep it,
That'll work for me.
right,
Get it out the way. Time wise, not that it's not.
right, yeah.
Yeah, because you being recorded, you just said, getting out the.
Yeah, barring unforeseen circumstances,
Retract that.
we are all free of charge volunteers in the community. So,
As long as it's, if it's during the weekday, preferably at 6:30.
Yeah, because I'm, you know.
yeah,
I
I
work
give
here.
parents time to get home or what have you.
And this is probably gonna be a lot to even have it streamed.
Right, yeah, that.
We're gonna have, and that depends on where we have. it.
Absolutely, and I'm not, and I think maybe bringing up that point is good. Maybe we could have just maybe one live stream,
Because it's
live
gonna be the
stream
same,
one
it's
when-
gonna be the same
right? We
presentation.
could live stream one when we're in a building, but because when we go into one district, if it doesn't have the capabilities
Then we can't do
that
it.
we have here, so if one of ours
Is that
is through
central?
here or through
Hardin's not good. It's not Wednesday.
Aqua, we'll do the live stream from that one.
Okay.
And then people could have access to the live stream.
And what I will say is that even though we're bouncing around to different districts, every time that we do so if we're scheduled to be at, another place, we can still post that same live and just let that video and say, hey, this is happening today. It's at this school, but you can watch the full version here. So people don't have an excuse that.
And notifications through Fair and Square for every district we're hitting on those dates.
Yeah.
There's going to be a community forum discussion here. I don't know if we want to come up with verbiage for it or just let Ms. Connie handle it.
As long as, I prefer there's a community forum, we should include the dates, or at least for the one that's in 10 days, have a flyer.
Right, okay, we could have the flyer as well, but it's,
At least the first flyer,
Yeah, the
and
first
then
one.
put more dates to come once we figure
yeah,
it
that
out.
makes sense, but it's gonna be called community forum / committee meeting, because it's gotta be properly noticed, because we're doing it doing it differently this year, because it's gonna be, got a little more structure to it, and it also guarantees a few of us are there, because sometimes it's just me and Mr. Testani, me and one other board member showing up, kind of left on his own. So. All right, do we have anything else? And if, let's see, we got homework. The thing is that, we discussed the points where we feel you're gonna be able to jump in, have like a rough script or something for yourselves. Do the same for my portions and it may flow differently as we go through, and there's no worries. There's a point that you feel more comfortable jumping in, that you don't feel comfortable jumping in now.
I think your outline for like what we planned, like to point, was a good one. Like at least we know for each section, these are like the major things within that outline that you did. I think that worked.
And I'll clean it up and I'll send everybody. And maybe take the notes off the PowerPoint and just refer to the slide.
And I need that version because I still have the first one that you sent.
Okay, I thought I sent it to you. Okay, I'll send it.
No, it's still the same.
Me too.
Okay, I'll send it to both of you. So is there anything else? Any questions, anything?
Are they gonna do a phone blast?
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
that's it.
phone blast,
Yeah,
phone blast, good point. Phone blast and Fair and Square.
Parent Square.
Phone blast, parent square.
Social
Maybe we could
media.
do morning announcements at the schools. Why couldn't a school do an announcement?
They can do one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
Yeah,
That's it.
as people are dropping their kids off and
Mhm.
possibly picking them up.
Yep.
Do the parents hear it outside?
Yeah, I can at Jenny Tisdale. I live right across the street. I can.
Oh, yeah, actually.
You hear it outside.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know if that's all schools. Jenny is more new.
yeah, actually, at Discovery, I hear it. I don't know, I mean, it would have to be outside classroom hours and such like that. It may, how about we, leave that to Testani's discretion?
Yeah.
Because it might
Maybe that's
interfere with
at Testani's
operations.
discretion. But yeah, the sooner we have something concrete to send out, and as a board, I don't know, it probably can't be required, but it should be highly recommended that if you have an active social media or a
Yes.
Facebook
Twitter,
campaign
Facebook.
page, because we all have to run for office, to share it
Absolutely.
within the network and other affiliations that may have interest with it. So interest groups, and see if each one of their members will commit to telling one other person to spread the word of mouth.
Yeah.
There's 19,000 or about 20,000 students in the school system.
Somebody knows somebody.
So, roughly, at least, I'm doing just quick math off my head. Every parent had 2 kids. You're talking about 10,000 different families, maybe eligible to vote. Okay, knock that out to 9,000. That's 9,000 potential voters. That's more voters that have turned out for my past election. And so getting the community involved, that number, 9,000, I think that was probably at most that came out to come and vote for the presidential election. When it's something that people matter and they care about, and if it's their kids and keeping them out of trouble and preparing them for the real world, I would love to see a fraction of that. But it will take word of mouth, convenience, and schedules. So this first one, we gotta get as many people out as early as possible and share.
Right. What
I
the-
have a question, are we
districts are
serving
focused?
food? Cause that's always an attraction.
No, it's not,
It's 6 o'clock. Parents are coming, like, I don't even know if that's something we could do, but like, I know,
that could be messy because spending board funds will require board approval.
Can it be a donation or? a
yeah,
gift?
yeah.
I guess, I suppose, or whatever, but I just don't want to make it
I
more
just noticed-
complicated than it.
But that's like, like if you want people to skip dinner to come to a meeting or
Oh,
prepare.
6:30 one?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you think about kids, and I'm used to it. My mom dragged me to everything, but this is a new generation, and that may not be the case for
Like
everyone.
at the Park and PTSO,
That's how they
the
come.
workshop, they have a dinner so they can come and then,
Even if they come for the dinner, we can, that's getting them in the door.
I guess we could bounce it off, but the next board meeting would be on the 28th to get, unless
To get
there's like a
approval.
special, unless there's a special
Give it if
budget.
it's donated,
Or who's gonna be asking people?
we can
Start now.
start now and see if someone will be willing to.
I really suck at raising funds.
We know.
I put most of my money into my own campaign.
This is being recorded.
I can,
I'm not saying.
Listen.
I know my strengths and weaknesses.
I know a lot of vendors, I can go talk to them so they can help me to donate something, just,
Yeah,
They-
even if it's like pasta and something.
yeah. We can do something.
Listen, but we won't promise food if it's there.
No, we're not. No,
Surprise.
we're not doing that. But we're just saying that it could
Mhm.
that could help.
We can say there may be
Yeah.
food.
Light refreshments, maybe light refreshments.
Something fast, something simple, something.
Yeah.
That's not it. Do we have a preferred district? We start two districts we're gonna start in? They gotta be close by and share, like at least a voting location or a tight demographic.
The last one we did was we did Jetty Tisdale. That was a pretty good turnout for Jetty Tisdale that night.
What district is that?
That's the 130. Shoot. Ninth?
I think
Is that
so.
East End?
Yes, Easton.
I think we should, if it's Tisdale or Hardin, to do the 139th and the 138th first.
Yeah.
138 and 139.
Are we saying it's the hardest to do, like get people?
No, just because the proximity teacher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But I just do know that
138th had the best turnout in the original.
but 139th
Community
was
form.
really good too.
What are we arguing with the districts? Everybody's welcome. I'm just confused.
Would- Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
where we're
everybody's
going to
welcome.
start.
No, yeah, because we're inviting the town committee members. We want them to be in their district, so their
They're
what you
quick
call
to
it,
get
the-
people.
constituents are there. And they can sit there with the constituents, and it'll be an added draw for them to come as well.
No argument. Whatever we start.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out.
Were you gonna speak about Testani to be sure we have police officers? Just in case the dramatic come out, you never know.
I don't know, I've never been uncomfortable enough at a meeting for a police officer to be there. Does that, I mean,
I'm just saying, yes,
and,
because we talk about budget.
that could possibly be another added expense, and we've had no trouble. I mean, the last meeting, we had a couple of people got a little loud during recess. That wasn't even an open meeting, and when security just asked them to be quiet, they were quiet. Our public in our city are pretty reasonable at the meetings. I mean, this is not something that's, I mean, I can understand if we're later down in the process 2 years from now, and we've got potentially closed a couple of students, bloods will be boiling, but I don't think this is a situation that would require a police presence. And I think it actually be detrimental. Like, we really don't trust our public. But that being said, if they are rowdy, it's only, not rowdy, upset, or if something happens, a phone call away.
Well, normally the buildings have not security, but the security.
Yeah,
guard, So,
security, our regular security guards, I would have to go through with this. Just bringing a police presence would not feel right to me. I don't know if the UCLA agree.
Yeah, I mean, I still want to imagine an equitable turnout. but maybe the current reality for the first meeting may not be so high in attendance that I don't
Think it would be necessary.
think it'd be necessary because we've also spread it out into 5 different
Right,
meetings.
so
So
we
crowd
like-
control and ideally would be equally dispersed or even because it'll be the first meeting, attendance may be low, but the word of mouth will start to spread that the Board of Ed's having it. So for the first one, I don't know if it's extremely necessary beyond the school guard that'll be there.
Awesome. All right. So I think we got more, so we start 139, 138, and I guess we could, shoehorn in the rest,
Yeah.
like with the proximity. I'll look at the map again and just.
Scheduling with test on.
And schedule on this. It's not, and this will be the Saturday one will be the first day, that's the 26th. And any days after 6:30, where there's no committee meetings. It's good for everybody at this point in time. Okay, I think we got,
Before we
Yeah.
adjourn the meeting, question. We're gonna allow, or you guys gonna allow your committee on answer questions, knowing, or you know that people not from Bridgeport School or then different organization, are you gonna answer the question? You know, if you have the answer, you are gonna allow,
yeah,
because I don't want you to feel, oh, you're not from Bridgeport School, you're not from this town. You know, some people, you know, they always come.
I don't think we're gonna be checking IDs at the doors.
No, I'm talking about, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking other schools and other private schools. They come and ask questions about a budget in Bridgeport.
As long as they're asking, I don't see a problem as long as they're asking about our budget and things within our purview. And if they do happen to ask a question about charter schools, we just refer them to whatever the charter school governance council is.
Okay.
That's their governing body, which
Mm-hmm.
contact your school principal, whatever have you. We have no authority over such and such school.
Okay.
Well, it has to be clarified because special ed transportation
Right,
is
yeah.
part of it.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, if they ask about buses to the school, but then they're still gonna have to get back to the school for coordination purposes. That'll be one of the questions. If that comes up, something like that would have to be referred. If like, my child's having problems with the bus, then we know we pay for the bus, but they administer the buses at the other place, so we would have them contact. Well, through us, we go through Testani, and Testani could go through the charter school, or the liaison could contact the charter school or something like that. Like any question we can't handle, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
we refer it to the proper people. We apologize if we don't have the answer for them.
Yeah. That's fine.
And I think it says something, not having all the answers sometimes, and then finding out the answers and tell them. Because a lot of times it's not having all the answers, it's knowing how to find them and knowing how to get them. Is there anything else?
No. So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. It was a meeting, but a good meeting.
Yes.